In a small village nestled deep within the forest, there lived a woman named Nandi. Nandi was kind and gentle, loved by everyone. She was the wife of Malu, the village healer. The people of the village often came to Malu for help when they were sick or hurt, and Nandi would always be by his side, comforting them. But Nandi had a secret. She and Malu had been married for many years, and though they tried to have child, Nandi never became pregnant. The people in the village whispered that perhaps the spirits didn't favor her, but Nandi still hoped. One evening, after a long day of helping people, Malu's best friend Jomo came to visit. He had been away in another village for many months. Jomo was tall and strong, with a bright smile. He brought gifts of food and stories from his travels, and Nandi welcomed him warmly. That night, when Malu went to gather herbs in the forest, Nandi and Jomo find themselves alone. Jomo's smile made Nandi feel something she had not felt in a long time. She had always been faithful to Malu, but this one night she made a terrible mistake. She and Jomo shared a secret moment under the moonlight, a moment that would change everything. Soon after, Nandi discovered she was pregnant. The village rejoiced, for they believed the spirits had finally blessed Nandi with a child. The women sang songs and danced in celebration, and the elders declared the child would be special. Nandi smiled and pretended to be happy, but deep inside she was filled with fear and guilt. She knew the baby was not Malu's, but Jomo's. As the baby grew inside her, Nandi began having strange dreams. In the dreams, she saw the ancestors, spirits of the people who had lived in the village long ago. They spoke to her in riddles, warning her of the child's future. They told her the baby would be powerful, but dangerous if born with secrets. Nandi didn't know what to do. She loved her unborn child, but the ancestors' warning frightened her. She tried to push her dreams away, but they became stronger. Every night, the ancestors came to her in her sleep, telling her she must reveal the truth or something terrible would happen. One night, she dreamed of a large river that ran through the village. In the dream, the water turned red, and the villagers cried out in pain. The spirits told her that if she did not confess her secret, the river would run with blood, and the village would suffer. When Nandi awoke, she was sweating and shaking. She knew she had to tell Malu the truth. But every time she looked into his kind eyes, she couldn't bring herself to say the words. How could she tell him that the child he loved so much wasn't his? How could she break his heart? The next day, the village held a great ceremony to honor the child growing in Nandi's belly. The elders performed rituals, praying to the ancestors for protection and blessing. Nandi stood before the crowd, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt the baby kick inside her, as if they knew the secrets she carried. As the ceremony continued, dark clouds gathered in the sky. The wind began to howl, and the thunder rumbled in the distance. The villagers looked up in fear, for they knew the weather was a sign from the spirits. Suddenly, the rain began to fall, but it wasn't ordinary rain. The drops were thick and red, like blood. The villagers screamed and ran for cover. But the rain didn't stop. It poured from the sky, turning the ground into a river of crimson. Nandi fell to her knees, trembling. She knew this was the spirit's warning. She had waited too long. Now the village was being punished because of her secret. She clutched her belly, feeling the baby stir inside her. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "I'm sorry." Malu rushed to her side, his face filled with worry. "What's happening, Nandi?" he asked. "Why is this happening?" Nandi sobbed. unable to meet his eyes. "It's my fault," she choked out. The baby isn't yours, Malu. It's Jomo's." Malu stared at her in shock, his face pale. The rain continued to fall, staining his clothes red. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice shaking. "I made a mistake," Nandi said, her voice barely a whisper. "I was weak. I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sorry." Malu stood up, his fist clenched. For a moment, Nandi thought he might strike her, but instead he turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the red rain. The village elders gathered quickly, trying to calm the frightened villagers. They knew the rain was a sign from the spirits, but they didn't know how to stop it. The chief elder approached Nandi, his face stern. "You must make things right," he said. "The spirits are angry because of your deceit. You must atone for your sin." Nandi nodded, weeping her tears. She knew she had no choice. She had to make things right, or the village would suffer even more. The chief elder instructed her to visit the sacred grove at the edge of the forest, where the spirits were believed to dwell. There she would offer a sacrifice and confess her sin to the ancestors. With a heavy heart, Nandi made her way to the sacred grove. The trees loomed tall and silent, and the air was thick with the scent of earth and rain. Nandi knelt before the ancient altar, her hands trembling. She spoke aloud, confessing her sin and begging the ancestors for forgiveness. She placed a small offering of food and herbs on the altar, praying that the spirits would accept it. As she finished her prayer, the rain began to slow, the wind died down and the sky cleared, revealing the bright stars above. Nandi sighed in relief, feeling the weight of her guilt lift just a little, but she knew her journey wasn't over. Days passed and the village returned to normal, but Nandi's heart remained heavy. Malu still hadn't spoken to her. He spent most of his time in the forest, gathering herbs and avoiding her. Nandi wanted to talk to him, to explain, but she was afraid of what he might say. Then one night, the spirits came to Nandi's again in a dream. This time, they weren't angry. They spoke softly, telling her that her child was still special, but the path ahead would be difficult. The baby would be born with a great power, but Nandi would need to be strong to guide it. The spirits warned her that Jomo would soon return to the village, seeking to claim the child as his own. If Nandi allowed this, darkness would fall upon the village once again. When Nandi awoke, she knew what she had to do. She had to protect her child, no matter the cost. A few days later, Jomo returned to the village, just as the spirits had warned. He came with gifts and a charming smile, but Nandi could see the greed in his eyes. He wanted the child, his child, and he would stop at nothing to take it. Nandi confronted Jomo in the village square, surrounded by the people. She told him that the child belonged to the village, to Malu and to spirits. She refused to let him take it. Jomo laughed, but his eyes were cold. "The child is mine, Nandi. You cannot deny me what is rightfully mine." "The child is not yours," Nandi said firmly. "The child belongs to ancestors. I will not let you bring harm to the village." Malu, who had been watching from the sidelines, stepped forward. He stood beside Nandi, his expression stern. "Nandi's right," he said. "The child belongs to the village. If you try to take it, you will face the wrath of ancestors." Jomo sneered, but he could see the determination in their eyes. He knew he was defeated. With a final glare, he turned and left the village, disappearing into the forest. Nandi took a deep breath. The danger had passed, but she knew the journey was far from over. The baby was still growing inside her, and the spirits had told her that it would be powerful. She would need to be strong and wise to guide her child. When the baby was born, the village gathered once again to celebrate. The child was a boy with bright eyes and a strong spirit. The villagers whispered that he was a spirit child, blessed by ancestors. Nandi smiled as she held her son, feeling the warmth of his small body against her chest. Malu stood beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. Though the pain of the past still lingered, they both knew they had been given a second chance. Together, they would raise the child with love and wisdom, guiding him on the right path. And so, the village of the Akamba people lived in peace once again, with the spirit child growing strong and wise, a beacon of hope for the future. The lesson Nandi learned was clear. Even when we make mistakes, there is always a chance for redemption if we are brave enough to face our truths and seek forgiveness. No matter how dark the path may seem, the light of honesty and love will always guide us through. This is Kaya, truly thankful for your time. If you enjoyed this tale, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Until we meet again, take care, sweethearts.